Listen to this clip from Tulsi Gabbard.
President Biden could end this crisis and prevent a war with Russia by doing something very simple, guaranteeing that Ukraine will not become a member of NATO. Because if Ukraine became a member of NATO, that would put U.S. and NATO troops directly on the doorstep of Russia, which, as Putin has laid out, would undermine their national security interests. The reality is that it is highly, highly unlikely that Ukraine will ever become a member of NATO anyway. So the question is, why doesn't President Biden and NATO leaders actually just say that and guarantee it? Which begs the question of why are we in this position then? If the answer to this and preventing this war from happening is very clear as day, and really it just points to one conclusion that I can see, which is they actually want Russia to invade Ukraine. Why would they? Because number one, it gives the Biden administration a clear excuse to go and levy draconian sanctions, which are a modern day siege against Russia and the Russian people. And number two, it cements this Cold War in place. The military-industrial complex is the one that benefits from this. They clearly control the Biden administration. Warmongers on both sides in Washington have been drumming up these tensions. If they get Russia to invade Ukraine, then again, it locks in this new Cold War. The military-industrial complex starts to make a ton of more money than they have been in fighting Al-Qaeda or making weapons for Al-Qaeda. And who pays the price? The American people pay the price. The Ukrainian people pay the price. The Russian people pay the price. It undermines our own national security, but the military-industrial complex that controls so many of our politicians wins, and they run to the bank.
You've seen this from both sides as a lawmaker and a member of our armed forces, so I think you've got a credible view on this.
I've looked at this carefully, Tucker, and I have yet to find any benefit that a political leader has used or could use to justify this to the American people. All you hear is like, well, we have to defend democracy. We have to defend this democratic country of Ukraine. But as you know very well, this current president, shuts down, arrests political opposition, throws them in jail, shuts down TV stations that are critical to him. I have a hard time seeing how President Biden or anyone can say with an honest face, we are defending democracy. And the reason is because our own government has publicly supported these authoritarian actions by the Ukrainian president in shutting down their own political opposition. And it begs the question, this sounds familiar to some of the things that unfortunately we're seeing play out right here at home.
I was just about to say, it sounds like their kind of democracy.
She's right. This war could have been avoided. At the moment, the most important priority is to first somehow stop this war. Now, how can we stop the war? Of course, we cannot do this by running popular hashtags on social media because geopolitics is very complicated. Geopolitics is not run by running popular hashtags or by singing Imagine on the war front. So the only way this war can be stopped at the moment is when Joe Biden and Vladimir Putin come and meet and declare a joint temporary ceasefire and give a breather to the people of Ukraine who are suffering for no fault of theirs. It cannot be done by making an arrangement of a meeting between Zelensky and Putin because it was never about Ukraine. Ukraine has been trapped. Right from day one, this was always about US and Russia. So Ukraine is just a collateral damage, just like so many other countries which became a collateral damage in this very, very age-old duel between US and Russia. So because Russia and United States are at loggerheads, Ukraine has to pay the price. Another big mistake which Ukraine did, we will call it as a mistake in international relations and international politics because this is how it is. They were doing the right thing, but eventually it is called a mistake when you study international relations. In 1994 in Budapest, when Ukraine agreed to these countries, UK, USA, Russia, when they signed a memorandum and promised Ukraine that we will not attack you, and going by that assurance, when Ukraine by 1996, when they transferred their last nuclear warhead to Russia, they were doing this big mistake because now that they were denuclearized, they were vulnerable. And another mistake which Ukraine did was in 2014, because when this Crimea incident happened, Ukraine should have got alarmed and they should have started preparing themselves for the next 5-6 years. But they went on continuing their reliance on NATO, on European countries, on US, and today they feel backstabbed. They have been backstabbed by NATO, European forces, US, everyone. And this is how it is. So today, every one of us may be feeling bad and angry about Russia doing this. But it's about both sides of the coin. It works both ways. Have you forgotten what US did to so many countries? Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, Vietnam, Serbia. What happened in Serbia? There are so many theories. Why did US bomb Serbia in the first place? To get mineral resources, to get a military base by abducting Kosovo, or it was an attempt to divert the attention from then Monica Lewinsky scandal that was going on. There are so many theories, we do not know, because international affairs are very complicated. We do not know, but one thing is certain, that one country doesn't have the right to meddle in someone's affairs. Who gave you the power to be the moral custodian of the world when we have United Nations? So this is why you cannot blame one party. Both these countries, Russia and US, they have been the root cause of all the problems in international affairs, most of the problems. And most smaller countries, weaker countries, they become collateral damage. So US has been doing the same thing back when they bombed and destroyed Iraq. It was a case of personal ego maybe, because George Bush Sr. Had fought a war with Iraq. We will call it a defeat, the 1991 war, or we may call it a kind of victory for US, or a stalemate, whatever, because China-Vietnam war was also called a stalemate, but Chinese side, they claim that they got victory. But every war has been miscalculated in history, because wars are not fought on paper and the drawn maps. Wars are fought on real grounds, which is why US faced so many challenges in Afghanistan. Soviet, they faced so many challenges in Afghanistan in their wars. So, and there are different dynamics to why wars happen. Serbia, when US bombed Serbia, it was also a message to Russia that, hey, we can bomb your enemy, your ally, sorry. We can bomb your friend and you can do nothing about it, because your days of ruling is over. And the same thing China did. When China attacked Vietnam, it wanted to send a signal to Russia, because unlike today, that was the time when China and Russia were at loggerheads as well. Till today, they have disagreement on Vladivostok. So China wanted to convey to Vietnam that we can destroy your enemy, and you can do nothing about it. So it was a kind of power show. Just like that, today, it's a kind of power show on the other side. Russia wants to send a signal to US that we can attack your enemy and you can do nothing about it. Why nothing about it? Because the country which is doing it is keeping its nuclear option open this time, and this country has the largest number of nuclear arsenals on this planet. United States has 5,800 nuclear weapons. Russia has 6,250 nuclear weapons. So how do you try to isolate a country, which Joe Biden thinks he can, which has the largest number of nuclear weapons on the planet? And these are strong words when Vladimir Putin said over the last few weeks that any country which tries to meddle into this, which will be taught a lesson that they have never seen in history. These are very, very strong words. When a country straight away keeps its nuclear options open, that's really a very, very bad news for everyone. Enough to scare at least the smaller countries, which is exactly why no Asian country is trying to vote against Russia. They cannot, because they all have seen that how US backstabbed Afghanistan, and the kind of uproar and the kind of strong opinions we are seeing in favor of Ukraine, which is good, because what is happening in Ukraine is actually in one way wrong. You cannot do this, first of all. How can a stronger country invade a weak country like that and destroy and bomb like that? But what Russia is doing, US has been doing the same thing. So this is why Asian countries will not go against Russia, because US is too far, Russia is too close to comfort, and they don't want to displease Russia at this moment, which is very, very angry. So why they don't want to displease Russia? Because they have seen that US did not stand for Afghanistan. Just a few months back, it happened. The kind of abject surrender. Everyone has seen what happened. So why will they go against Russia? So no major Asian country has voted against. They have abstained. They can only abstain. So talk about China, India, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Bangladesh, UAE. None of these major Asian countries, they have gone against Russia because they don't want to get fooled again by the hollow assurances of US, of NATO, of Europe. They know that it's only about Russia and USA, and we don't want to get trapped into this. So they are abstaining. Now, there are so many wars that have been fought over the last 5-6 decades or so, and every war has been miscalculated. So while Putin miscalculated, Biden has also been miscalculating in their agendas. Putin thought that we will have Kyiv under siege in 2 days, but today is the 9th day, and what we have seen is strong resilience and strong fight back from Ukraine. And why Biden is miscalculating? Because he thought something what Tulsi Gabbard is also saying. Biden thought that let Russia invade Ukraine and we will have a point to put economic sanctions that will destroy Russia. No, it's not going to work. How are you trying to isolate? How are you thinking about isolating a country which has the largest number of nuclear weapons? This isolation will one day again lead to another provocation for a war, and innocent people will die. So this is why it is very, very complicated. You cannot isolate a major superpower. Did countries from other parts of the world, did they come together and try to isolate US after they bombed Iraq, Afghanistan, Serbia? And the list is long. The kind of the number of countries US has destroyed, the list is very, very long. But when we say US has done this, Russia has done this, are we talking about the country? We are not talking about the country, we are talking about the politicians. Because American people are very good people. Ukrainian people are very good people. Russian people, I know they are very, very good. They have a very rich cultural history. So it's not the people who are doing this. So it's a wrong way to say that America has bombed Serbia or Russia. Maybe Bill Clinton regime, they did this. Maybe George Bush, his party did this. Or maybe today Vladimir Putin is doing this. It's not the countries that do this. This we have to understand. And every party, whosoever is in power, have their own agendas and interests. Like some people still say that the Serbia episode, Serbia bombing, was an attempt to divert the attention from those issues of what were the issue. We all know Monica Lewinsky issue was going on at that time. It was an attempt to divert that story from off the New York Times. So the problem is that at this stage, world geopolitics, which was already complicated, has gone more complicated. And today we are sitting at the brink of a tipping point, just like Stanley Kubrick's movie, Dr. Strangelove, or How Do I Stop Worrying About and Loving the Bomb. We are today sitting at the tipping point with so many jackrabbits. What do we do about it? The only practical wisdom at this time is to create another movement. There was already a movement back in the 1950s. It started in the 50s with Yugoslavia's Tito, with India's Prime Minister Nehru. So these people, they started this NAM, non-aligned movement, which was the most sensible thing to do. But again, beyond a point, staying neutral is a myth. You have to take a side. So when India faced this when US sent its 7th naval fleet of and US and UK tried to send their powers in 1971. India had to align itself a little bit with the Soviets, and today they are caught with that race of gratitude. So they just want to, they don't want to vote against Russia because they have been time-tested friends. And America, they have been a friend to none, keeping their self-interest only on priority. Every country, this is the theory of international relations, which is very unfortunate. Every country tries to prioritize its own national interests. And UN is at best a meek watcher. So at this moment, first thing is to stop the war somehow. Who can stop the war? Of course, Zelensky and Putin cannot stop the war because it was never about Zelensky. Putin sees Zelensky as just a proxy of US, because before 2014 the situation was different. Ukraine has had pro-Russian heads, and today Zelensky was seen to be someone who was close to US. So Zelensky and Putin cannot come together and stop this war. Biden and Putin has to come together and stop the innocent civilians of Ukraine getting bombed and destroyed like this. Can Joe Biden shed his ego? Is a real question. And come to the table and probably discuss. We can give peace a chance, because we have seen something like this in early 90s when Israel and Palestine, Yasser Arafat, they both came to the talk on the talking tables, and they got the Nobel Prize. So we can do this, something like this. And who can arrange this meeting? Probably I think Emmanuel Macron can do this, because he has been trying to convince Putin over the last few months, and we appreciate his honest endeavors to stop the war. But probably one more thing he could do is to make a visit to Washington DC and try to convince Joe Biden himself that, hey, why cannot you talk to Putin at least once and immediately declare a ceasefire, and let's talk and let's see if we can de-escalate the situation. Instead of trying to de-escalate, we are trying to further flare up the situation, which is a real problem. So right from day one, it was never about Ukraine or Russia. It was always about Russia and US, and all other countries are getting trapped in this block. So in the long term, the one solution is the NAM, the non-aligned movement, which started in 50s but somehow failed, because they say in international politics staying neutral is a myth, and you have to align yourself sooner or later. But this alignment should have been mild and not strong.